Today is Friday, May 17th. We'll tell you about Israel's controversial plans for Gaza and how the U.S. is now helping the Palestinians who live there. Also, why President Biden used his executive power to keep Republicans from hearing an interview he gave to a special counsel. And what's next in former President Trump's criminal trial. Plus, there's growing backlash over an NFL player's commencement speech. Many women will now be able to skip an intrusive exam at the gynecologist's office. And pop stars embraced their countryside at last night's ACM Awards. Those stories and more in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Storms have been slamming parts of Texas and Louisiana over the last 24 hours with heavy rain and hurricane-force winds. They flooded roads, blew out windows in high-rise buildings, downed trees, and knocked out power to more than 1 million homes and businesses. Sadly, at least 4 people died in Houston, and more floods are expected. In fact, more than 30 million people are at risk of severe weather today across parts of the Gulf Coast, with excessive rainfall and flooding being the biggest concern. Dozens of school districts and many offices have closed for the day. Thankfully, the severe weather should die down by tomorrow. This week, the Israeli government announced it will send more troops to Rafah in its mission to wipe out the Hamas terror group. With a full-scale invasion expected soon, UN officials say hundreds of thousands of civilians are now relocating again. But Israel says as they move, so do some Hamas militants who try to surround themselves with civilians on purpose, hoping to keep themselves safe as well. So Israel's campaign could end up shifting again. Meanwhile, remember how the U.S. military was setting up a temporary pier on the Gaza coast? Well, that pier was just anchored to the beach yesterday. And with that, American officials say as much as 500 tons of food will begin arriving on the Gaza shore within days. The UN's World Food Program will take it from there to distribute to Palestinians. Now, as you know, the aid is desperately needed. But American and international officials say even if everything with the new pier works perfectly, the humanitarian crisis won't end. So the U.S. has been pressuring Israel to open up more land crossings, too. Israel did open up 2 of them in recent weeks, but it says there have also been Hamas attacks on the main crossing, and another one has been used by Hamas to smuggle arms into Gaza. So, to be continued. Well, some people who have recently crossed the U.S.-Mexico border are getting a fast track to either asylum or deportation. The Biden administration announced a new recent arrivals docket. It will quickly place single adults before immigration judges in Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York City. And most of those asylum claims will have to be resolved within 6 months, which is a major change since it usually takes years. The system is overwhelmed with more than 3 million asylum cases being considered in the U.S. at last check. Once migrants get in front of a judge, officials can either quickly reject their asylum claims and deport them, or if their case for asylum is deemed legitimate, they'll be able to stay and work in the U.S. legally. This is actually just one step in what's expected to be a series of White House moves on the border coming soon. There are new tensions brewing between Republicans in Congress and the U.S. Justice Department. House Republicans issued a subpoena to hear a recording of an interview between President Biden and special counsel Robert Hur. Now, this relates back to an investigation into classified documents found at President Biden's home and office. Remember, in the end, the special counsel decided criminal charges were not necessary. But he also made some unflattering statements about Biden after his interview with him, calling the president, quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Well, flash forward, and now House Republicans want that audio recording of the interview. But yesterday, the Justice Department told them President Biden used his executive privilege to withhold it. The White House argues Republicans only want the recordings to manipulate them for political gain. And it pointed out that the DOJ already released the transcripts of the interview, just not the audio, and that should be enough. But many Republicans argue they still need the audio as part of their investigation into the Biden family's business dealings. And top GOP leaders say it's clear President Biden has something to hide on this election year. They now want to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. So stay tuned. President Trump's criminal hush money trial is starting to wind down. The judge told lawyers to be ready to make their closing arguments by Tuesday. This comes after another contentious day in court, with Trump's defense team grilling his one-time fixer, Michael Cohen, again. Yesterday, Trump's lawyers accused Cohen of lying even during this trial. They expressed disbelief that Cohen could accurately remember years-old phone calls that he detailed to the jury earlier. Trump's lawyers also portrayed Cohen as an opportunist out for revenge, since Trump didn't save him from prison when he was convicted of bank fraud and campaign finance violations over work he did for the former president. They played part of Cohen's podcast when he said he wanted Trump to, quote, go down and rot inside for what he did to me and my family. Cohen's testimony is crucial in this case since he's the only witness who has testified to having firsthand knowledge of Trump covering up a hush money payment by falsifying business records. And Cohen is the prosecution's last witness. Next up, the former president's legal team will have to decide if it will put up its own witnesses and whether Trump himself may testify. In the past, Trump has said he wanted to since he says he did nothing wrong and that this whole case is political, but his lawyers say no official decision has been made just yet. Today marks 70 years since the U.S. Supreme Court made a decision that changed America forever. We're talking about Brown versus the Board of Education. Of course, that case outlawed racial segregation in American public schools. To celebrate, President Biden met with the Brown plaintiffs and their families at the White House yesterday. But it wasn't all celebration, since unfortunately schools do remain divided, even if the law says the division cannot be mandated. A recent study from Stanford and University of California found that since 1988, segregation between Black and white students has increased 64% in the 100 largest school districts in the country. One of the president's senior advisors addressed that yesterday, saying, quote, we're not where we ought to be, but we're certainly not where we used to be. And he said the administration is committed to doing more. We have more news for you still coming up, but first, thanks to our sponsor, Honeylove. Mother's Day may be over, but it's not too late to treat yourself with the essentials you actually want to wear. Ever since becoming a mom, comfort means even more to me. I need to be able to run around with my toddler, but I also still want to feel like my stylish adult self. Honeylove has revolutionized everything from leggings and tanks to shapewear and bras. For example, I basically live in Honeylove's Legging 2.0. The fabric is super soft and stretchy and breathable. The side pockets are the convenience that I need on a daily basis. And the shaping panels give me the support and look that I want. Honeylove is not just supporting women, it's empowering women. Treat yourself to the best bras, leggings, and more, and save 20% at honeylove.com/newsworthy. Again, use our exclusive link to get 20% off, honeylove.com/newsworthy, to find your perfect fit. And after you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and let them know we sent you. You deserve this. Free the pain and discomfort. Keep the support with Honeylove. Now back to the news. There's now another option for women who dread getting their regular pelvic exam that's often uncomfortable. The FDA approved a new test for HPV that lets patients do a self-swab. For now, they'll only be available at doctors' offices and pharmacies. So patients will collect their sample in the bathroom, similar to an in-office urine test. Then the provider will send it to a lab for evaluation. The idea is this might encourage more women to do the screening since it will be less invasive and available at more places. And that's important since HPV is the virus that can lead to cervical cancer. But if precancerous cells are caught early enough, the cancer can be prevented or the cancer itself can be cured. The new self-swabs are expected to be available this summer. And eventually, test makers say they plan to offer an at-home option, too. Backlash is growing over one controversial commencement speech. You've probably heard about this one if you're on social media. Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker spoke at a graduation ceremony at the Benedictine College about 60 miles outside of Kansas City. And during the 20-minute speech, he said most of the women receiving degrees were probably more excited about getting married and having children than they were about possible careers. He also referred to the LGBTQ Pride Month as a deadly sin and said abortion, IVF, surrogacy, and more all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Well, now there's a petition circulating calling on the Chiefs to kick Butker off the team. It says his comments, quote, reinforce harmful stereotypes that threaten social progress. And it's already surpassed its goal of getting 150,000 signatures. Many celebrities have spoken out to condemn Butker's remarks as well. But others are standing up for him, pointing out that he was only voicing his Catholic beliefs as a conservative Catholic at a Catholic college, not a football game. And the NFL has tried to distance itself from the controversy, saying Butker's views are not those of the NFL as an organization. So far, no comment from the Kansas City Chiefs. Reddit is now joining forces with ChatGPT's OpenAI. The companies announced a deal yesterday. It means OpenAI will have licensed access to incorporate Reddit's content into ChatGPT. Plus, OpenAI will be able to use Reddit content to help train future AI models as well. For Reddit, selling its data to train AI means adding a key source of revenue. It will also be allowed to start including new AI features on its own platform. and the companies will be advertising partners. Reddit has already announced a similar deal with Google. Some of the biggest names in country music came together last night and brought some of the biggest names in pop music along with them. They all gathered for the 2024 Academy of Country Music Awards. The show featured more than a dozen performances in 2 hours. Post Malone played songs from his upcoming country album. Dua Lipa joined Chris Stapleton, Noah Kahan performed with Kelsey Ballerini, and Gwen Stefani joined forces with her husband, Blake Shelton. Shelton also honored Toby Keith, who died earlier this year, before introducing an emotional tribute performance by Jason Aldean. As far as the actual awards, Lainey Wilson came out on top. She won the top award of Entertainer of the Year and Female Artist of the Year. Chris Stapleton won Male Artist of the Year and Album of the Year. The whole thing was hosted by country music legend Reba McEntire for the 17th time. She also closed out the show with her own performance. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, this episode is brought to you by ZocDoc. If there's one place to have high standards, it should be for your doctor. I believe we all deserve doctors who are both knowledgeable and who care, who listen to our questions and concerns and answer them with full transparency. If you need to look a bit more to find that kind of doctor, check out ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. You can filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, are located near you, and treat basically any condition you're searching for. And these docs all have verified reviews from actual real patients. So we're talking about booking appointments with tens of thousands of top-rated, patient-reviewed, credible doctors and specialists. I check ZocDoc whenever I'm looking for a new doctor, and I appreciate how easy it is to search and use. So go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Now back to Feel Good Friday. A Vietnam veteran was reunited with a souvenir from his military career nearly 6 decades after his service ended. Larry Morganti lost his metal dog tag during a rocket attack in Vietnam in the 1960s. Well, a man in Vietnam recently found it with a metal detector and sent it to his friend, a Swedish construction worker who collects military memorabilia named Christopher Hansen. But Hansen didn't think he should keep a dog tag that belonged to a living veteran, so he was determined to find the rightful owner. He looked on Facebook and found out Morganti is now an artist whose work is displayed at a local business. So he reached out to the business, and the store manager put the two men in contact. Then, just last month, Morganti received the dog tag in the mail, along with a letter from Hansen thanking him for his service. Morganti says he was surprised and that he now plans to pass the dog tags on to his children. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode. It's a conversation all about anxiety, burnout, social media, and more. Then join us again Monday for your next news roundup. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.